page, and that's the Federal Division of the Human Health and Services Department of the federal government, and it's the source of the funding which is fueling the court corruption problem. Judges are making their rulings according to the program grant requirements. There's grant requirements in place. They come from the federal government, the state government, to the county government, and it's not based on case evidence. There was nothing in my case or Tammy's case or my girlfriend's case that ever justified some of these things that happened. And some of those past ECF officials were actually closely associated with fathers' rights groups and leaders, and they essentially turned the department into a pro-father abuse cover-up agency, and they were meeting with judges, and then they started, over the years, since 1995, they've gone throughout the country, and they've been training judges and guardian ad litems and attorneys that are guardian ad litems and attorneys that will represent fathers, different fathers' rights groups, and they've spread like a cancer throughout our society. So let me send that over to Tammy, unless you have a question first.
No, go ahead, Tammy.
No, actually, what she said was she hit the nail right on the head about everything. And the thing I want to say is when the 2012 congressional report was issued, and it was even in here on page 11, the National Organization for Women were even concerned at that point that an importance of the father could lead to an undervaluing single-parent families that maintained by the mother, that these services could cause a discord. So what we're saying is fathers need to be in the lives of children. There's no question whatsoever. But when you have physical and sexual and emotional abuse involved, we have to take that into consideration. And what this funding is doing is it's not only suppressing evidence of abuse, but it's funding it. And so what happens is when a mother is being beaten, there's domestic violence, the child's being abused, the same court that she's going to for help is actually getting federal grants to let that convicted felon out of prison. And that program is actually called the reentry program.
Right.
So the judges and their staff are getting paid to let this convicted felon out of prison. Where does a mother go for help, especially when 85%, no offense, these are facts, of domestic violence is perpetrated by males, and only 2 to 8% of allegations in divorce by mothers are false.
I want to ask both of you a question here.
Where do we go?
I want to ask you both a question here. Where does the National Organization for Women stand on this issue that's going on? Good question.
That's a really good question. In fact, I've turned to them for help and have sent them several letters and evidence about this issue. And there's only one group in Palm Beach County that appears to be even somewhat active. But other than that, no one has reached out or even contacted me back to try and get this issue resolved. It's kind of ironic because they're the ones that are actually predicted that.
Tammy,
and actually, the women's groups have gotten visas. I don't know if your listeners are familiar with NGOs. They're non-governmental organizations, and they're sanctioned by the United Nations. And they're operating everywhere in the United States. And they're groups that get federal funding or they get donations. They're carrying out the initiatives of the federal government. For example, there's a group in Michigan called Dads and Moms of Michigan, and they will counsel men. They will talk to women, but they really help men get free legal advice and find attorneys that are getting these funds and advise them hatefully, basically like a hate group against the things they say about women. And what's really unfortunate is that some of these groups, these women's groups, like the National Organization of Women, because I about corruption or about fighting you in Agenda 21 or about married women or single women. I reached out to them, and all they do, and I used to get their emails, and it's all about just progressive policies about government takeover of everything.
Oh, wow.